Yo guys, welcome back to another weekly tutorial on the MENSPIRE Ireland channel. So guys, last month we passed 50 videos. I'd just like to say a quick thank you to everybody that's been tuning in from day one. I hope you've gained immense value from the content that we've been putting out, and thank you all so much for tuning in every week for the last year. So guys, this week I've got my little brother in for a haircut. We've got a full restyle. So I'm really looking forward to demonstrating this for you guys. We're going to be working on some classic graduation, something that we're seeing a lot of in the salons at the moment. We've got some nice length and weight within the hair for the winter months. And we're going to finish it off with a really nice skin taper and a shape up as well. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the video. So starting off, we're just going to create a really simple box section through the top. This just allows me to separate areas that I don't want to cut straight away and areas that I want to focus on in the very beginning. As you can see, we're taking the sections right above the curvature of the head. So everything that's left on top is completely above the contour and the curvatures. We're then going to move on to the back, and notice here how I take the section before the head begins to curve. It doesn't quite line up with the back of the ear, but this section is actually based on the head shape, and you can see that I've divided it exactly where the head begins to curve. We're now moving through to the nape, and as you can see, I've just created some really nice tension at the nape before I bring the finger razor in. This helps to keep the line clean and helps to keep the hair balanced. I'm going to keep this line square, so you'll notice that as I move through the corners, I'm trying to keep as much length as possible, while also making sure it's not disconnected. Now as we move through to the graduation in the back, you'll notice that I'm using a pivoting section technique, where the first section begins almost as a vertical section and we start to pivot as we move left. You'll see now as I'm cutting this very first guide that I'm actually using the length from the nape to determine the length of my graduation. This just creates more fluidity in the shape and allows me to keep the correct length all the way through to the crown. Notice here guys how I'm using the fine side of the comb to create nice tension. Making sure that tension is nice and strong, pulling out to the line. Nice clean cutting line. As we move on to the next section now, you'll see I take section 2 to the left, and this section starts to pivot slightly to the left and gets wider towards the base. So I'm going to over direct section 2 back to section number 1, and you'll see now that I begin cutting the line from the top since the guide has been transferred from the nape. It's much cleaner and more fluid to work down in this scenario. So I'm going to work my line from the longest point to the shortest point since I have the guide already. Move the head forward slightly as we work through the nape. This helps for your body position and keeps your back nice and balanced. This is after all 4 sections dries. You can see how we get that really nice build up of weight, and you can see that the weight that we've built with these pivoting sections is a really flush shape on the head. Same process on the right hand side guys, starting from the top, building my weight down, using that guide from the very top, creating some beautiful graduation all the way to the nape. Making sure I've got that tension each time. Tension is key in creating consistency in your shape and making sure that all the hair is pulled to the same position when cutting. Notice guys on the right hand side how my finger position has flipped, so I'm now pointing my fingertips down and my palm is in the air, and this just helps to control the shape more on the right hand side. Okay guys, now we're going to connect the side into the back, and here you'll notice that traditionally we would start from the side with this haircut, but in this case we started from the back to be able to control that length at the nape. We're now going to begin a new guide at the side, and this new guide is just determined by a finger tight approach so that I can create a really clean skin taper. Once I move beyond the first zone where the head is flat and I'm trying to create a skin taper, so I want little to no weight in this area to allow me to create a skin taper, I then start to bring my sections through to the back, where we're using the guide from the back to marry the length on the sides. First section that takes us from the side to the back, you'll see that the section runs right down to the nape. I'm going to take this little piece away at the front because it's actually part of the fringe and it's on the frontal lobe. I'm then going to over direct the first part of my section back down to the contour to create that really nice build up of weight. I'm then going to step to the left with my body, and we're going to connect the over directed section on the side into our length at the back. And you can see guys here visually these connect up really nicely. Now guys, moving on to the opposite side, we're using the same process again, starting off with some shorter graduation to the sides to reduce that weight before connecting the side into the back. You'll see that that section extends right through to the back, and we're marrying that length that we created with our graduation in the back with the length on the sides, and you'll see here how nicely they match up. Personally, I match these visually. You can be a little bit more technical about it and use, for instance, the teeth on the comb to try and match. Generally speaking, over time you will get really good at visually marrying your lengths together. Now guys, we're going to continue to connect through to the back before moving on to the frontal lobe and the fringe area. So guys, you'll notice that I've taken this separate section and moved the hair of the frontal lobe out of the way before continuing to connect the hair from the top, or from where the layer is, back down to my graduation. In this case, I've connected the top back down to my layer first because I'm not looking to remove so much length from the layer on top. If anything, I'm looking to maintain most of it. So in this case, I'm connecting it first before we layer the top, because the intention is to actually retain most of that length. Over directing right back down to the contour, making sure that we create and keep that weight. if we elevate too high in this area, we end up reducing the weight as opposed to building it. So you want to make sure that your over direction is really well thought out and placed. Same on the other side, over directing right back down to that graduation, making sure to keep it nice and balanced and keeping that weight around the curvature of the contours nice and full. Now guys, we're going to connect into the top. We're going to take the guide from the very back, or from the top of the very back, and we're going to find that longest short piece. You'll see guys that the length that's coming off on top is very minimal, and instead of using a blunt cutting line, I'm going to actually point cut these small areas away. This will just help to create movement and won't create as much weight within the top part of the haircut. Again, we use that guide from the very back of the contour. Now as we move to the top, again we want to maintain the majority of this length in the front, so I'm actually going to just use a finger razor to remove any of the dead weight and the hair that we really don't need. This is going to help to create movement, create space in the hair, and it's also going to allow me to maintain most of that length that I want to hold on to in the front. I'm now going to work between the hair. This is just going to break up the hair and remove any unnecessary weight that we don't need before moving on to styling and blow drying the hair. Generally speaking guys, with this haircut I like to use Rough Stuff, which is a MENSPIRE product, and it's more of a wax. It's a little bit heavier and I like to put it in before I blow dry. It just helps to keep the hair nice and heavy and allows me to see the shape in real time. Now I'm going to start some point cutting guys. Going to go right through the hair and just break up any of those blunt cutting lines that we did create. Anywhere where we created a lot of cutting lines is generally prone to excess weight. Now moving on to the taper, you can see that I'm using the number 2. I'm coming off right around where I created my first over direction. So just as the head begins to round is where I want my number 2 to be placed. Now bringing in my 0 line, and before I continue the taper, sometimes I like to place my shape up in first. Helps me to control the weight at the front, and it also helps me to map out the height that I want my taper to be at. Really nice C shape, really nice shape up for this hairstyle. Going to continue the shape up around the hairline, using the small hairs at the front to create some definition but not pushing the hairline back. Now guys, back to tapering. Going to use the transition guard or the big 1.5 first. Just help to flatten out the surface before I come in and try and blend. Now moving to the 1 open, using that very sharp C motion to blend into the length above before moving down to the 1. Then the 0.5. And then lastly, just as we want to remove that last piece of the 0 line, we'll move to the 0. We're blending from a double 0 or a skin line right into that 0. Shaping up and adding some definition around the ear before moving on to the beard and just generally creating a really nice tidy up and some definition. Using the blade all around the hairline just to remove any excess weight or any excess hair, keeping everything nice and clean. Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And again, please subscribe, like and comment, and I hope you enjoyed this new format of a voiceover. Let us know how you got on in the comments and if you enjoyed it.